I'll tell you something. One of the funniest memories I have is my, and this is horrible. I'm about to share this, and I'm sure people are going to be like writing in, like, get her some help, right? Our little sister had died, and we were at the funeral, and at the
Hang
end,
on. Did Vinny pass away?
yeah, Vinny died.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Oh no. I'm
yeah,
so sorry. I didn't know.
yeah. I'm not at that part yet. I'm working on the third book called Tell Me About Nothing. So that will give the rest of the story.
Paulina, I was gonna, at some point today, I was going to ask you, I need you to update me on your mum and your sister. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for that. Vinny came as a shock because my mom was so sick. Vinny almost became my kid. I was doing everything for her. And I'm not saying I was doing it well. I was 2 years her senior. A big part of me was angry that I had to do so much for my sibling, right? Vinny grew up being bullied, just not a great experience for her in life. She passed away unexpectedly, and I think she was 41. We were at the funeral. We were going to have her cremated. So they have them in these, big boxes, and you can say your final goodbye. And my brother and I went to her to say goodbye, and I kissed her, and my brother kissed her too. And then he stopped, and the box looked literally like a freaking shoebox. And my brother said we should take a marker and write size 9 on the side. You know what I mean? Like funny, right? And yet you shouldn't be laughing during that time, right? It's not funny. But if you do not make light, I'm not saying disrespect,
Mhm.
but if you do not make light of those moments, if you don't embrace those moments as part of life, you just will have a harder time getting
Right.
through life. Yeah, humor, big, big, big plus.
Oh, I'm so shocked. I didn't know about Vinny, so
That,
it's
that's okay. Is your mom still living? Your mom?
yeah. Is
Ah,
your mum?
no, not even my mom. My mom passed away. She was 83 and she had gotten stable on her meds. It was amazing because just as she was really maybe experiencing a time of, back to joy kind of thing, she ended up getting, so the first thing she got was breast cancer. So she had to have a mastectomy, and that took her down a bit. And then one day she just had a cerebral hemorrhage, and that was it. She was gone. It's interesting because my father, like yours, died of a massive heart attack and literally was laughing one minute, down and gone the next, right?
Right.
And my mother, she had this hemorrhage and they put her on life support, and they told us there's no brain activity, there's nothing there. You should disconnect her. So we did. And I thought it was going to be like the movies, right? Where you take someone off of life support, they peacefully take their last breath, you say goodbye. No, my mother lasted 7 days. Yeah. And you want to talk about doubting and guilt and thinking to yourself, are we starving her? Are we killing her? Are we, you know what I mean? Like what are you doing? And then at the end she finally went. That was tough. So yeah, both gone. And I'll say this, just as in the first book, second book, time gives you perspective. With them both gone, with a lot of water under the bridge, as they say, this book, I'm dealing with a lot of compassion, a lot of wishful thinking. Maya Angelou said, "We do what we know how to do in the moment, and when we know better, we do better." And for someone who is dealing with someone with an illness like this, in those moments, you may not be your best self. I know I wasn't at all. Afterward, when you look back, there's a tendency, especially if you're writing about it, to write from the perspective of where you sit now. So, in other words, the me of now would not have done some of the things I did back then. And there's a tendency to punish yourself for being human, right? And to feel horrible. And you cannot do that. You just can't do that because the you of today, you should have grown. You should have learned. And the you of yesterday did the very best that you could do. Same with everybody else in your circle. Compassion, forgiveness, those are gifts. And the first thing you need to do is give it to yourself. Yeah. Now, why are you emotions are coming up? What are you thinking about? What's
I just always thought it was unfair for everybody. And that was one of my questions that you wrote about sadness that you carried for the life your mum could have lived
Yeah.
and for the sacrifices that your dad made. When you look back and think, geez, I mean, obviously everything brings you to this point
Mhm.
and it makes you who you are today. But it was really painful.
Oh yeah.
And I look at, I was moved so much by your father.
Mhm.
And after he passed away, I mean, I'm shocked that Vinny passed away because I thought for sure that she would be around. I think that shocked me a lot. But when your father passed away, you walked past the fridge and you saw a note that said, "Bye, Paulina. Have good day."
Yeah.
And bye was spelt B-A-Y.
Yeah.
And everything that your father carried, despite everybody doing their best in such a chaotic home, your father gave laughter, love, discipline, stability, despite his own pain.
Yep. Mhm.
And it really moves me because, I also wanted to touch on another thing that I think is quite important, which is the plight of the immigrant.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, unless you have lived through that, you can't understand the struggles, the daily difficulties that an immigrant faces in their new country, the cultural differences, the hardships, the language barriers, feeling out of place, feeling as though this whole life is just a mess. And then on top of that, you have the mental illness,
Yeah.
that happened with our families. Thinking about the immigration factor, I read a book a couple of years ago called Our Most Troubling Madness, and it analyzes schizophrenia
Oh, all
across the
right.
globe. And about half of the case studies were immigrants who had developed schizophrenia in their new country.
Oh
And
wow.
so, right, I knew that this would really be something that would be interesting to you because it made me think of our mums. And it made me question just how much that unique experience of being an immigrant, those hardships, how it impacted their mental health, and how much it could have influenced their developing schizophrenia. They did have a propensity because of genetics,
Mhm.
and they probably had a lot of emotional traumas and blows already in their lives. I know that your mum had lost her brother,
Right.
Joel, or Uncle Joel, right?
Yeah, that was a big one. Yeah.
And my mum had just lost her dad. And
Oh.
so it made me think about this book, and it also gave me some sort of comfort in thinking this isn't just a case that it's happening in my family or in your family, Paulina. I mean, a book was written about this.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so how many more cases are there? And when you think about immigrants, how many immigrants moved to Australia from different countries, moved to the USA, to Canada, to other parts of the world, and found that all of a sudden they're in no man's land because
Yeah.
they go home and they're not no longer from their home. And in their new country, they're not.
They're not rooted. They're just not, right? It's a place that's new. It's interesting because immigration, especially now, right? It's making major headlines and there's a lack of understanding as I see it on the immigrant, the plight, the fact that we all are from immigrants. We are, you know what I mean? It's just a matter of how many generations of your family were in any given place. The courage that it takes for someone to leave all that they know everything, their language, their culture, exactly what you're saying, family, all of it, even if they're being persecuted, and to come to an unknown place in the hopes that it's better. What courage, right? Courage, hope, dreams. I I salute, I applaud every single person who attempts that. I remember my mom, when I moved from Chicago to Los Angeles, where I live now, there was a moment when I was here and I was like, oh my God, what the hell have I done? I was so alone. I was so depressed. And I called my mom. At that point, my father was dead. And I was like, I just can't do this. I was crying. I think I need to come home because at least with her, I knew my role. I knew that I could take care of her, right? I just wasn't doing a great job of myself. I was shocked. Here's my mother who should have said, yes, come home because I cared for her. And instead she said, no, 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 no. I felt the same way when I came from Italy. It just takes time. Just give it a little more time. What courage and what a mother's love to say something like that. Now, regarding immigrants and the madness that you're talking about in this book, which I did not know, I haven't really kind of looked into that. I will, but it makes perfect sense. If you come to a place and all you have is you, then those voices that we all have in our head very well may be taking you down a different path. What it is that you're thinking, what are others thinking about you? And we have a tendency as humans to go to the negative, no matter what, right? Catastrophizing. Well, if there's even a little hint of something not quite as it should be, that can easily spiral down. One of the shocking things for me myself, I am a very strong, pretty positive person generally. I'm an accomplished person. The fact that and I'm going to say this to you too, the fact that people with the strength we have and the intelligence and the roots or whatever you want to call it that we have can get to a place where even we contemplate suicide, and in my case, murder suicide, to this day, that shocks me. And what will happen when people don't have any kind of support system, when they don't have the education behind them, the language behind them, the roots that we've been talking about? It can't end up well. It just can't. It shouldn't be a surprise to any of us. There's another book that I'm going to suggest. The author is, I think her name is Vivian Fierson, I think. She wrote a book called The Origins of You. And she talks about 5 wounds from childhood that show up in your adulthood if you do not manage them, if you don't address them. So there's the priority wound. If you grew up with someone with a mental illness, if you grew up with a parent that has other addictions or is focused on work or whatever, you are not prioritized. You will take that wound into adulthood and it will show up and mess with a lot more things, right? But there's also, she talks about the wound of belonging, the safety wound, all of these things that as children on several different levels, we all experience it. What we have not learned, however, is how to address those as adults so
Mm.
that they don't keep screwing with us. When we were even talking about my third book, Tell Me About Nothing. So committed ends when I meet
I,
that shrink. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that she asked you what's going on and you said nothing and she said, tell me about nothing.
Tell me about nothing.
So it makes so much sense
I,
that it's
yeah.
going to be called Tell Me About
Yeah.
Nothing.
You're amazing that you remember all this stuff. I'm like, oh man, when your questions, I was like, what? What did I write? I don't, so so thank you for that. But tell me about nothing. Put it this way. She saw me for months for free, twice a week, because I was so fucked up, excuse my language, and I didn't have money to pay for it. And I too have a podcast. I actually interviewed her on the podcast of what she remembered of meeting me, why she took me on, because she saved my life, literally. I was with her for about a decade. And there came a point, it was the turning point for me. I, kept going over all this stuff that was happening, still happening. And one day she said to me, Paulina, when are you going to stop wishing for a better past? Because
Wow.
it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And for some reason, that was like, bing, oh my gosh, she's right, right? You can let that past continue to screw with your future, or you can take what you learned from it and leave the rest in the past and move on, right? If I had a wish for anybody listening now, don't try to DIY it. Find someone. I wish that you could all find your own Lynn. That was the name of my shrink. Because, wow, one person, one comment can turn everything around. I viewed going to a shrink as I wasn't strong enough, as I had failed. Going to a professional for help is a huge sign of strength. If I have one wish for anyone experiencing anything where they are surrounded by madness, find the magic, and the magic is often another person,
Mm.
another someone who can help you see it. I have a friend who said to me once, we cannot see the label from inside the bottle. When we're in the muck of it, you can't see the possibilities outside. The third book is focusing on that.